Wow, I worked up a sweat just watching our guest go through all of that. That's Ron Oliver, the man we're going to be talking to today. I guess in our health and wellness series, he's able to talk about a lot more than just that. But if you can believe it, he just told us that he did all of that after when he was exhausted and emaciated from doing a 30-day juice fast. Imagine what he's like on red meat. Anyway, we're going to be able to meet with him and talk with him about his company, his fitness company that he operates with his son. But before we go there and introduce him properly, we're going to go to the aphorism board. So first of all, from the poet Virgil, the greatest wealth is health. From Mahatma Gandhi, who, as you know, is often quoted in this show, it is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. From the book of Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 6, behold, I will bring health and healing. I will heal them and reveal to them the abundance of peace and truth. And finally, a more modern day proponent of health and wellness, quarterback Tom Brady, considered by many to be the greatest football player of all time, who was quoted as saying, "You push your body to the limits, but you have to train your body to deal with the limits." So who do we have on the show today? Our guest is Ron Oliver. Ron started his career at 22 years of age when he got hired as a personal trainer at Gold's Gym in Vancouver, British Columbia. After hundreds of clients, he realized that almost everyone he was working with was stuck taking pharmaceutical drugs because they were sick all the time or suffering from some kind of disease. He decided that no matter what, he or his family would never fall victim to disease. He sought out the truth about health and disease, how to increase longevity, and how to achieve a disease-proof immune system. He found scientists, doctors, biochemists, natural formulators, strength and performance coaches, etc., many different experts that became teachers to him. Because of these amazing teachers, Ron learned the real cause of disease, how to develop a robust immune system to protect himself, his family, and his clients from sickness. And because of what he's learned, he has not been sick once in over 25 years. Wow, incredible. For over 30 years, Ron has dedicated himself to developing the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that is needed to achieve an extraordinarily healthy body, mind, and spirit. And more importantly, he's now sharing it with people through his business, his company, Elite Dynamic Life. And we're going to be talking to him about that, about his vocation and what it means to him and how he can help people like you live healthier lives. Welcome to the program, Ron Oliver.
Thank you so much, Leighton. I appreciate it.
So I understand that you have been involved in health and fitness and wellness for a long time now, but recently you've gotten your son involved, Justin, and he's taken up this business with you. Could you tell us sort of how this all evolved and how it got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I became a full-time dad at when my son was 22 years ago, and so he just began to live with me full-time, and he just started to do what I do, right? And I've been living this way for a long time before he was born. And then about 10 years ago, he took a real interest in it. So I started to mentor him and teach him everything I could because of his desire for it. And now he works alongside me and he does the health coaching, fitness coaching, teaching people what I taught my son based on everything I was taught by my mentors. So he's doing exactly what I do, and he really services more of the younger crowd because, they can relate to him a lot better than they can relate to me and you, our age, in our 50s.
Hmm. So before we dive into your company, I have to ask you the significance of the backdrop there, the sort of the handshake and the two flags. You want to talk about that a little bit? What the
Sure.
significance of it?
Well, we basically have a lot of American clients, a lot of Canadian clients, and it's really just a way to sort of show people without saying anything that we're patriots and we're all about freedom and the freedom of choice and the freedom to decide what you're going to drink and eat and what you're going to put in your body.
Hmm. And those things, those choices, are really key to what you and your son teach, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've all heard it's all about you are what you eat, right? But that's not as clear as it should be. It really should be we are what we consume. So what you look at, what you listen to, what you drink, what you eat, all of those things become what we are. The old saying is, as a man thinketh, he becomes. But
Hmm.
what you're drinking and eating is having a huge impact on your health, the health of your gut, the health of your brain, the health of all your organs. So we really teach people to pay attention to what they're drinking and eating and pay attention to their thought life and the words that come out their mouth.
Hmm. No, that also reminds me of something that Aristotle wrote, and he wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do. That is, we become our habits." Right. So,
Absolutely.
if we have healthy habits, we're healthy. If you lie all the time, you're a liar. If you steal all the time, you're a thief.
Absolutely.
So this forming habits, that I expect that's also part of what you try and do with your clients, to get them to sort of get away from bad habits. For example, replacing soda pop and double from Tim Hortons with good fresh water and things of that nature, right?
100%. The only difference between a healthy man and woman and an unhealthy man and woman are the difference of their habits.
Hmm. Hmm. So true, mentally and physically. So we would be remiss though if we didn't mention this other person, Elle Sherwood. She's also an assistant coach with your
Yes.
team. Do you want to talk about her a little
Yeah,
bit?
she is my son's fiance, and she's a great young lady. She has become a great friend to the family, and of course, they're planning to get married. And I'm behind that because she's a really good girl, and she just took a real liking to my son, and they both just fell in love, right? And she's also very passionate about health, so she's learned to adopt, all of the things that we teach into her life. So for the last 5 years, she's been drinking and eating exactly how we do, and she hasn't been sick one day since we met her.
So this is wonderful because it combines not only the values that you hold that you've talked about, but also family and hard work and things of that nature. Going back a little bit further into your history, though, Ron, how did you get involved? I mean, we saw in that video clip some pretty extreme stuff that you do. How did you get involved with this type of fitness? Were you in the military, or were you involved in martial arts of some kind as a young man? How did you get sort of launched on your current track?
Well, basically, quite commonly people when they're younger, right, they go through trials and tribulations. And I went through a lot of that. I got picked on in school. My dad had some real issues, and my mom had some issues because, people have issues in their life. So I had a great childhood as far as, living on a farm, all organic whole foods. We had an orchard. We grew everything from scratch. We had chickens. We had our own chicken eggs, obviously, too. I was drinking organic raw milk. Now it's illegal. Pretty interesting, isn't it?
Hmm.
So I had a very healthy upbringing. We had an artesian well, but my parents had their issues, like all parents typically do. And my grandparents were alcoholics living next door. So there was a lot of chaos and turmoil in my house. So I grew up not really building up any self-esteem and self-worth. So I really just started working out because I wanted to have some self-esteem and some self-worth. And I also thought it was cool to have muscles and not be a wimp, right?
Hmm.
And so that's how it all kind of started. I just always had a passion for health and fitness, even as a kid. I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan the Barbarian, saw this man with all these muscles, and my dad bought me a weight set from Simpson Sears, those plastic ones with concrete inside, right?
Oh yeah.
Started working out. And then I did it in school, and then it just became a thing. It was just part of my life. I just worked out. And then I got into boxing and kickboxing and jujitsu because I thought it would be a good idea to be able to defend myself. So I've just always been that guy. I'm just always the guy that works out and trains hard. It's just part of my nature. And then at 22, I was at Gold's Gym. I just moved to Vancouver. And I was sitting on the bench in between sets, and this old timer trainer came up to me, a 30-year veteran trainer, and he says to me, after we talked a little bit, he says, you ever thought about being a trainer? And I thought to myself, never thought of that before. And it started just put the seeds in me. The next thing you know, I'm going to the owner of the gym saying, hey, I wouldn't mind becoming a trainer. Boom, he hires me. And that's it. I've been in the health and fitness industry ever since.
Yeah, Conan the Barbarian is one that's fixed in my memory. My favorite line from that movie is when Conan gets asked what is best in life, and he says to crush your enemies, and he hears the lamentations of their women. Anyway, getting back to you, one of the great things about your company, when I did some research on it, are your values. These are. I happen to think that more important than almost anything in life are the values which guide us, that sort of guide our personal philosophy and the way that we sort of navigate our way through life. And people who don't have values tend to really struggle. That sort of twist in the wind. Obviously, you're not doing that. And some of your values, I wanted you to talk about them a little bit. Number one is people first, product second, profit third. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Most companies on this planet, the big ones especially, very successful companies, it's clear when you look at their products or their services or their, especially like supplements, things of that nature, because that's the field I'm in, health and fitness. You'll look and you can tell that profit was the agenda. And then products number two, and the people are the last thing on the list. But really what it's all about is all about being of service and providing true value in the marketplace as a businessman, whether you're a lawyer, a roofer, or a personal trainer, or a health coach, right? Life coach. So we just make it that way because that's just the right thing to do. So we make it all about our clients, all about family, all about friends. I'm a believer, so I'm smart enough to know that my great grandfather wasn't an ape. And I figured that out in high school when they were teaching evolution. And I asked the teacher, why aren't apes turning into men today? And I got kicked out for arguing, right? So that's the deal, right? So I believe we were all created, and I believe in doing what's right. And it should be all about being of service and providing value and really trying to be a blessing to people with the gifts and talents God gave us.
Well, it is sad, however, that some people who don't have values do conduct themselves as though they're brutes. But obviously that's not part of what you're doing. So you talked a little bit about your faith there. You referenced your faith. And obviously this is imbued right through the values of your company. You want to talk a little bit about how your faith, how your belief in Jesus Christ sort of guides you and in your life and in your business?
Well, it's very interesting because when I grew up, I had very religious parents, a lot of religious friends, parents, and I was just turned off of the whole God thing, to be honest with you. Because most religious people, if you've met them, they're very self-righteous, judgmental, pretty arrogant, and they're not nice that often, right? And I just didn't like any of that. And so I was just turned off of the whole thing. But I've always believed there was a creator. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like somebody planted all these trees, right? And so I've always believed in God, but I just didn't see the example that would draw me into it. So I was totally off the subject. Don't talk to me about it. Don't talk to me about the Bible. I want nothing to do with it because of how people were treating me, And then when I met one of my mentors at the age of 28, and he began to just blow my mind with wisdom about how to achieve a powerful, robust immune system. And after about a year of working with them, I had seen a staggering improvement in my energy, my vitality, and my performance and my health. It was just incredible. So I asked him if he'd written a book, and he said, I haven't read a book. I had no time. So I'm like, okay, well, could you recommend a book? And he said, well, I don't really like any of the books that man has written. So I was bummed out about it. And I said, when are you going to write a book? He says, I don't have time. I'm doing 300 lectures around the world every year. I don't have 3 months to take out and write a book. So I said, is there nothing you can recommend? And he says to me the strangest thing I'd ever heard at that time in my life. He says, the greatest book ever written on nutrition, Ron, is the Bible. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I thought it was a bad joke. Now, because of my experiences growing up with religious people and my own parents, the idea sounds stupid to me. And I didn't like the answer. But because he said it, it was so different. If someone else had told me that, I would have said, no, I'm not listening to this. but my gut told me, listen to him. So he told me to get a specific Bible version and go to the back of the Bible, look up every verse on nutrition, read all those verses, and then we'll talk about it. And so I did what he told me. But a week or two later, we got back on the phone and we talked about it. And I just had my mind blown because everything he'd been teaching me about how to eat, I found it in the scriptures. So it changed my whole entire perception of the Bible completely. Now I saw it to be a book full of wisdom about health at that point. That's all I understood. And then later, of course, I thought, well, I'm going to read some other subjects. So I started reading about Jesus, started reading about the devil, started reading about angels, started reading about what's the difference between the soul and the spirit. And I just started to research and look up everything in the Bible. And I've been reading it for 20 years, and it's just the most epic book ever. Everything else I find boring to read, and it's got more exciting stories than ever Hollywood's ever had. It's just that people don't typically understand how to read it. What I was taught to do was pray before I read it and ask for wisdom and revelation and understanding. So when I'm reading the book that was inspired by God himself, I could understand what I'm supposed to understand instead of trying to figure it out with my own intellect.
Interesting. So this gentleman you spoke of, who was he? Could you talk a bit more about him?
His name was Michael O'Brien, and he's not with us anymore. But he was a medical doctor until he was 56, and he was, your typical medical doctor, but a very wise man. And he became a doctor to help people. And at 56, he ended up with stage 4 bowel cancer, cirrhosis of the liver, type 1 diabetes, arthritis, fibromyalgia. And he was literally given 2 weeks to live by his own doctors. And at the time, he'd achieved great success. He was the medical director of 2 Los Angeles medical clinics. And here he is, this top of the class, doesn't get any higher than a medical director. And he's dying of 5 diseases, And so he gets on his knees and he prays to God. He didn't pray to God to heal him. He prayed to God to give him the wisdom to heal himself, because he knew there was no cure in the medical, establishment where he's from. And like I would say, he got the download because he began to do research at the library. He looked into history and he found out the real truth about our God-given immune systems, how they're supposed to function, how to help them along, and how to actually achieve true health the proper way. And 4 months later, he had eliminated all those diseases from his body. And when I first heard the story, I said, no, there's no way. That's impossible. And then I went to travel and I met him. And I saw him for myself, and I saw the youth and the vitality in a man that was in his 70s, and it was just ridiculous how healthy and vital he was, how wise he was. And he became my mentor, and he taught me tons of what I know today. I'm still living the same principles, that he taught me, and it's worked all this time.
It's incredible that when I talked with doctors and I talked to them about what they learn in medical school, that they really learn very little about health. What they learn about is how to deal with critical health situations, like trauma situations. That's what doctors learn. They learn very little about nutrition, about vitamins, or the value of exercise and how that can impact health, which is, I find, somewhat astonishing. Because, but it does explain a lot about the type of care that people receive from doctors, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We need hospitals, we need doctors, we need nurses, we need trauma surgeons. I mean, these people save lives every day. But when it comes to our day-to-day health and our well-being, we're supposed to take care of ourselves and be responsible for our own lives. What do we drink and eat, and do we get activity in, exercise? Do we work hard? Like, we're supposed to be able to take care of ourselves. All the animals know how to do it. How come we don't?
And we do have this incredible immune system. Absolutely. That we've been gifted to by well, you and I believe that it comes from God. And yet, and unlocking the secrets of how to really activate that immune system is a big part of what you do, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I've studied, the immune system a ton. Every word that you look up in the dictionary about the immune system, I've studied it deeply for about 30 years of my life. And I can tell you, here's what I can tell you, that our God-given immune system is a system designed to make you immune. Isn't that crazy? And thanks to the infinite wisdom of the medical system and their trillions of dollars of research in the last 125 years and their study on cadavers and studying disease, now you can hardly find a healthy person on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read a book recently that basically showed that most of the cures for major diseases were actually found by studying people who somehow had immunity from certain diseases. For example, there was a gentleman who was an airline pilot in the 1970s and 80s, and although he had AIDS, it wasn't killing him. And so all the AIDS drugs that have allegedly or presumably saved lives were all developed from studying how his immune system dealt with the AIDS virus. And that isn't unique. That's also true of a lot of cancers. But coming back to your story and your values, one of your other major values is love and family is the most important part of your life. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I know you've referenced your son and your soon-to-be daughter-in-law, but what's the importance of family and love to your business and also to maintaining a healthy immune system?
Well, at the end of the day, the number one cause of disease-related death is stress. And stress comes from fear and being uncertain of how to accomplish your goals or overcome challenges, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you have two choices. You can either be inspired or guided by love, or you can be controlled by fear. You really got two choices. Out of love comes faith, happiness, joy, all kinds of wonderful things. Out of fear comes anger, greediness, selfishness, all the things we don't want to be, right? So love is the power that we need to tap into. But in order to tap into that power, you have to have peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And in order to have peace of mind, you have to have a knowledge of the truth, because if you don't have a knowledge of the truth, how are you going to have peace of mind?
Well, speaking of truth, one of your other core values is honor and integrity is the core of our culture. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, it's really simple. What comes around goes around. Some people say you reap what you sow. It's what's written in the Bible. Other people call it karma. But what you put out comes back. It's really just the way that it is. What we do is going to come back to us, right? So if you run around angry, you're going to run into angry people all day. If you run around depressed, you're going to run into depressed people all the time. If you lie all the time, people are going to come and lie to you. Like, it just comes back at you. It's like a boomerang
Mm-hmm.
effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have a beautiful life, you have to do the right thing. You just got to have honor and integrity, because at the end of the day, all we have is our name,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And our name is based upon our choices and how we treat other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So love being the most powerful force in the universe, the only way to tap into it is to live a life of honor and integrity, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And you also believe that you have to give to receive, and that sort of ties into what you were just saying, right?
100%.
Yeah. So in a sense, what you're doing, you've discovered through this gentleman that you discovered through him and through the Bible, this sort of, let's call it a life hack, right?
Right.
Health and wellness and everything that came to you from there. And so a big part of what you're doing is you feel this responsibility to pass this on and share this with other people.
Absolutely. It really boils down to, we were created, I believe that 1,000 billion %. In fact, I know that it's true. And we all have a purpose for being on this planet. We're not here for, some happenstance. We're here for a reason. And we've all been given gifts and talents and abilities that make us unique, make us special, and able to do things that nobody else can do. Nobody can do you better than you. Nobody can do me better than me. We're all gifted, and it's just a matter of figuring out who we are, who we belong to, and what is our purpose for being on the planet. And once you discover your purpose, then you can begin to start living a fulfilling life, because the way we're made, if we're not doing what we were really created for, we're going to feel like something's wrong. We're not going to feel like everything's okay, because we still haven't found what we're looking for. This is what you call a lost soul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, most people don't know what they're doing here.
Yeah. No. And this is the importance of vocation, right? Knowing why you're here and and doing what God intended for you, right? And when you find that, there's that purpose. It's an unmistakable feeling. It sounds like that's where you guys are right now. So your mission is to inspire millions of families worldwide to transform their lives by creating the global health revolution that humanity is searching for, to teach and train people on the truth, to show them how they can thrive in this world, how to live a life free of sickness and disease, how to build an extraordinary life by becoming highly successful. And so ask the question, what is elite dynamic life? So what is elite dynamic life, Ron? Could you describe that for us?
Absolutely. So what we really specialize in is of course natural immunity, longevity, anti-aging, and teaching people how to live a life in harmony with the laws of nature. The way God created the universe, there are laws that govern nature, much like gravity. You know, that's a natural law that God established when he created everything. And it affects all of us, whether we're a good person or a bad person. You fall off the roof, it hurts when you land on the ground, right? It dictates what, you know, a deer is supposed to eat, what a grasshopper is supposed to eat, what a bird's supposed to eat, what a fish in the sea is supposed to eat. And it dictates what a human being should be eating. And so today you have so many people consuming products and not actual food. They're consuming beverages, but not actually pure water. And so you have all kinds of people that have become toxic as a result of being misinformed by marketing companies hired by billion-dollar beverage companies, food corporations, and trillion-dollar drug companies, which is why we're in this mess in the first place. Because the only reason why the world ended up being such a crazy place for the last 3 years is because the vast majority of human beings are totally ignorant to how to be a healthy human being. They don't know how their bodies work. They don't know how to live. They know how to die. People are drinking and eating themselves to death like they're heading for the electric chair. They become addicted to things that are actually destroying their lives. And for example, did you know that sugar has been proven scientifically to be 8 times more addictive than cocaine and heroin?
Just incredible. Well,
Right?
it certainly does explain why people are so addicted to it. You mentioned water, though, Ron. I know this is a big part of your program and your philosophy. And I saw on your website there's an I actually watched a Hydration Power, really fascinating video that's on your website. And it's a 40-minute presentation that teaches people one of the biggest secrets that allows us to get such amazing results for our health. So what's the importance of water? Can you talk about the hydration to human beings?
Absolutely.
Human health?
This is one of my favorite subjects because it's such a powerful, powerful message. Our bodies are 3/4 water, right? So mathematically, scientifically, that means water is 3/4 of the equation, period, right? It's either 3/4 of the problem, what you drink, or it can become 3/4 of your answer. And the moral of the story is, with all of these things that we should put in our bodies when it comes to water, food, and supplements, nothing dead can support life. Nothing dead can support life. There's not a philosophy or some fake science that can dispute it, right? So water is supposed to be living, and the majority of our food should be living, and our supplements should be made from living whole foods. That's ideal. That's what works, right? So when you drink water, there's a purpose for it. It's not supposed to be to quench your thirst. You're not even supposed to get thirsty. If you're getting thirsty, you're already dehydrated. The medical establishment in North America admits to 75% chronic dehydration. That's
Incredible.
insane. Okay? Because there's a book called The Body's Many Cries for Water by a Dr. Batman Jetty. I can't even say it. I just call him Dr. Batman. I still have not figured out how to pronounce that word. It's so long. It's almost impossible. But if you search that book out and you read it, it'll blow your mind. So he proved that over 25 life-threatening chronic diseases are caused by chronic dehydration alone. So the first thing we do when we get a new client is we educate them about what they're drinking, and they're always drinking things that dehydrate them, and they're always drinking toxic water. Bottled water is a nightmare. There's 24,500 chemicals in it. There's tons of microplastics in it. It's just absolutely unacceptable. And this is why we have so many men with low testosterone, and they're all on TRT, which is a whole nother conversation.
Wow.
And so that's not a good idea. So Our tap water is garbage because the cities are not doing a proper job. Of course, everybody thinks it's good water. So then why is everybody sick? And then you got all these systems they've sold us over here, like reverse osmosis and distilled water. And there's people that want to debate that till they're blue in the face. But I'm like, okay, well, I haven't been sick for 26 years. You know, what do you want me to say? You know, you couldn't pay me to drink this stuff. So I was fortunate. I grew up on a property, as I said before, with artesian well. So I had living water in my property. It's all I knew. As soon as I moved to the city, moved in with two buddies, and we were moving into our new apartment. I remember it was like yesterday, and I just went to the tap, got some water because I was thirsty. We're moving up and down in the elevator, and I took one sip and I almost gagged. I immediately spit it out. My body repulsed the water. Then I smelt it and it reeked. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I can't believe how much this water reeks. And all my buddies and the friends hanging out with us, helping us move, were just pounding it down like it was normal. They couldn't smell what I could smell. They couldn't taste what I could taste because I had never drank that in my life, you know. So I realized right then there was a problem. Bought myself a filter. I bought every water system basically that they make over the last 32 some odd years since moving away from home at 22. And the only water I will drink is a technology out of Japan because they got it figured out. And they made a technology that actually eliminates the toxins, but it also creates a medical grade, ionized, antioxidant rich living water. It's the closest thing you're ever going to get to perfect water from nature. And you can't get perfect water in nature anymore. We have polluted the world too much. Like 20 minutes from my house, there's a natural spring that's 1,000 feet deep. Everybody's raving about it all over the place. There's hundreds and hundreds going there every day to collect this free, amazing water. So I went and got some. I brought it home. I bought all the equipment to test water for myself because I don't trust companies. Do you? You know, everybody's trying to get you to buy their stuff. How do you know it's really true? So I bought the equipment to test water many years ago. And the water, although it was refreshing and it tasted good, and it was alkalizing, was rich in minerals, it was loaded with free radicals, which means it's now an oxidative solution. So water is supposed to be an antioxidant. It's supposed to be a natural cleanser, right? Think about it. We use water to clean everything, but then we drink dirty water, right? So this is a problem because your lymphatic system is critically important for your body to drain toxins, right? So you don't overpollute. It's a big part of your immune system, and it's 94% water, right? And your blood is supposed to be 90% water. Your gastrointestinal tract, 75% water. Your brain, 85% water. Heart and lungs, 79% water. Your muscles, your skin are supposed to be 75% water. So I ask all the ladies, I said, you want to look like a prune or a plum? You know? Wow. So hydrate yourself, you know? People don't know I'm 55 because, well, I'm not dehydrated like everybody else. And I don't agree with the doctors when they say 75% chronic dehydration. I believe it's more like 95, 98, 99%. It's been under our noses the whole time. Because every time you go to the hospital to visit really sick people, aren't they always on an IV? Right? So this is an epic problem. So the first thing we do is we teach people what water to drink. And then we teach them how much to drink, when to drink the water, and everything else they shouldn't drink if they actually want to achieve hydration for a day. And the moment we help them achieve true hydration, they're calling this and they're flabbergasted. They can't believe how wonderful they feel. It's changed their whole life, just that one tip. And then we teach them about bowel transit time. Do you know what that is?
No.
Well, I got a good story for you. So I walked in to meet my mentor for the first time. And I was a 28-year-old bodybuilder, boxing, kickboxing. I'm in the best shape of my life at the time. You know, I'm working out an hour or two a day, eating all organic whole foods. My nickname was the Ronster and the Food Nazi. I don't have any political views, but my diet was hardcore, as you can imagine, right? So I walked in the room. The man looks at me, Michael O'Brien. He says, Ron, you're one of the finest male specimens I've ever laid eyes on. And I'm like, wow, man, thank you. It was the greatest compliment I'd ever had at the time. And then he says to me, it's too bad you're full of crap. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, I'm confused, right? And he says to me, Ron, how many times a day do you eat? And I said, 6. I'm a bodybuilder. At the time, I was bodybuilding, right? And how many times a day do you have a bowel movement? And I said, well, 3. Like, I'm proud that I don't have a bowel problem, right? Because a lot of people don't do that. They go once a day. Some people don't go for days.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was doing great. I had no idea I could possibly have a problem. And he says, Ron, if 6 cars went in a tunnel, how many supposed to come out? And I said, well, 6. He goes, well, if you have 6 meals yesterday, you're supposed to have 6 bowel movements today. I said, oh my God, I'm full of crap. He goes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm like, oh my goodness. So guess what? He puts me on a full body detox, starting with my colon. My first detox was 2 years, brother.
Wow.
2 years. Like, we have a lot of systems in this body.
Mm-hmm.
And I was led by a world-class doctor, biochemist, formulator of natural medicine. So I didn't have to figure it out. I just did what I was told. Even though I had a 6-pack at the time, greatest shape of my life, felt like $1 million. Compared to what? Right? Compared to what?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else who's sick,
mm-hmm.
or unhealthy, eating junk food. And 20 pounds of undigested fecal matter, mucus plaque, and parasites came out of my body when I was 28 years old, doing a 2-month detox.
Wow.
I started having, 9 bowel movements a day. So now it was 3 poops ahead instead of 3 poops behind. I was just getting things sorted out,
Mm-hmm.
And this is the crappy part of our podcast. I'm sorry. It's so important,
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely important that people understand that. And can I ask you a shocking question?
Absolutely.
This is one that everybody should ask themselves. So they don't have to tell me and you the answer, but they should ask themselves this question. We've all gone to the refrigerator one day and we've forgotten some leftovers, right? And you open the door on a Saturday morning and it stinks. You go, oh my goodness, and you got to go, you dig around for it, you find it, you throw it straight out to the back into the garbage can. You don't even put it in the garbage in the house because you don't want to stink up the house, right? No one in the right mind would ever eat it, right? It stinks. Mm-hmm. That's why we have a nose above the mouth. It's so we can smell if things are safe to eat. It's not because we look weird with our noses on our forehead.
Mm-hmm.
God knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So why do people eat food that tastes good, smells good to them, the spices, the aroma? Everybody likes the smell and taste of their food, right? Mm-hmm. So why does the food come out smelling like crap when it was perfectly good smelling when it went in their mouth?
Interesting. I always thought it was because of the bacteria that live in the colon. Is that correct, or is that wrong?
The good bacteria doesn't make that odor. That's the putrefaction. So the truth is, poop's not supposed to reek. It's not supposed to have a foul odor. It should not have a bad odor at all. It should smell like fermentation, not putrefaction. So the smell of putrefaction is what happens when you go to the mall and someone's used the bathroom, is not feeling so well, and you go in there and you're like, no, I'll hold it till I get home. There's no way I'm going in there. But if you go out in the woods, talk to any hunter, or if you have cattle or goats or horses, if you're out in the wild and you can come up behind a bear and find some bear poop or deer poop or wolf poop, and it doesn't reek at all. Mm-hmm. Right? It's only human feces that smells horrid, or the pets or animals that we've been feeding because we don't know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So
interesting.
Food is supposed to ferment and break down into bioavailable nutrients, and then it's supposed to be evacuated within a 24-hour period. And I'll never forget the first time I had a bowel movement where it didn't smell. And I phoned up my mentor and I was telling him about it because I was in shock and awe when he told me this. I'm like, what do you mean poop's not supposed to stink? I mean, that's crazy. I never heard of anything in my life. 28 years old, never been told that before. And then I had my first one that didn't smell. And I was like shocked because it was trippy the first time, especially. Even the first few weeks I was tripping out about it. You could go in the bathroom, take a poop, and you wouldn't care who went in there behind you. They wouldn't even know. Right? And that was pretty cool, if you ask me. We're not supposed to be stinky. We're not supposed to have smelly breath, bad smelling gas, stinky feet, stinky armpits. That's because we're toxic. We got a bunch of undigested food in our food tube. It's turned into a poop tube, and that's a breeding ground for disease. Makes sense, right?
Interesting. It would explain a lot of the diseases that people suffer from as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. This is why our world's become a crappy world.
So talking about this water, pardon my pun, we're going to dive in a little bit more with this water.
Sure.
So When you're sitting down with a client and talking about their hydration needs, are these going to vary from person to person? In other words, would someone who's a larger person or like a large guy need to drink more water than someone who's a petite woman, for example, or is it age specific, or are there general guidelines about how much water we should be drinking? Because I know this is a question that a lot of people wonder about.
Absolutely. So what have we been told?
2 liters, something like 2 to 4 liters a day. Is that?
Well, it used to be 8 glasses, remember?
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah. I do remember that.
So how does that make sense? You got Brian Shaw. He's like a 400-pound giant in the States, world champion, power lifter, strongman. Then you got me, I'm 220. And then you got a 140-pound woman. So 8 glasses. That's what they've been telling us forever. And then lately, over the last few years, it's been more like 2 liters, 3 liters. Some people say 4 liters. Well, that doesn't make sense. That's like everybody should eat the same amount of calories. Right? So it's all relative to your body size. How much do you weigh? What I teach is 1 ounce per pound of body weight. Drink it on an empty stomach, not with your food. You don't want to dilute stomach acid. Now, there's all kinds of people who want to debate me about that. Go for it. I'm not interested in arguing. I'm not in the convincing business. That's what I've been doing for 26 years. It hasn't stopped working for me. Why would I change it, right? So I never drink water when I eat. When I hydrate, I'm hydrating. And when I eat, I eat. I don't mix the two. And animals do the same in the wild, And I only drink water that's living and that's medical grade, because it's so important. It's 3/4 of my body. It's the last thing you can go cheap on, So if you're living in, Africa, it's super hot. So you need even more water than someone living in Alaska because the perspiration and humidity, right? So it depends on your job, where you live, how much you weigh. Are you a landscaper sweating all day long in the sun? Or are you sitting on your butt in the office as a lawyer? So it's all relative to your lifestyle. Do you go in the sauna? Do you work out? Like there's so many variables. So we address each person individually like it's supposed to be because we're all individuals. No 2 people have the same fingerprint, the same DNA. Blood types are relative. Then you have, lifestyles, diets. I mean, there's so many variables. So you really have to, create a personalized protocol for each individual. There's no cookie cutter, program for everybody. It doesn't work like that. There's no one diet fits all either. So it really has to be, the guide is usually 1 ounce per pound of body weight. That always takes care of the chronic dehydration, but it has to be the right water. What we do is we have clients go in for a live blood analysis because it's all about the blood. So they can actually see their own blood cells, their red blood cells, white blood cells. They can see blood plasma. You can see if you have a parasite. You can see if you have all kinds of problems. You can see if you're deficient. And it just proves to people what's going on. It's not a diagnosis. It's you looking at your own blood. There it is. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. There it is. And then we have them go in every 90 days to have a follow-up so they can see what they've accomplished besides the weight loss, and they feel better, look better, and their health issues have disappeared. But they can see physical evidence, scientific proof that they've accomplished something. And this really helps people tremendously to stick to the program and not go back to their old ways.
So this purification or ionization water system you mentioned from Japan, do you sell those on your website, or where could people find those if they want to buy one?
We don't have a link to buy them off the website, but we do order them for all our clients because, for me to ensure that all my clients are getting extraordinary results like they should be, I have to decide what water they're going to drink, what supplements they take, and the kind of food they're going to eat, because it's my job. It's just like with you being a lawyer, you have to have clients that will go along with the perimeters of your business, because how are you going to give them results if they don't play by the rules, right? So water being that important, we just help them order it. It's a very simple process. We just help them order it and it gets shipped to the door. The best part is, and why I'll put my name behind the company, which I rarely will do because it's all about your name, right? And you can't afford to have your name tarnished because you're promoting somebody's products, right? So what I like about the company is they've been in business 48 years. And they have a no questions asked return policy. So people can buy it and try it. In Canada, you got 2 weeks. If it doesn't rock your world, send it back. No questions asked. We've never had a client return a machine. All we have is more referrals and more people wanting to hire us because people come over to our client's house, they see this machine on their counter or under the counter if they live in the States, and then they are, they're calling us because they want to talk to us about their health, because they got a mouthful about water at their, clients or friends, our client's house, their friend's house, and now they're intrigued and they want to know more about health. And it's been the number one, source of clients. Our whole career has been referrals, my whole career of 32 years, my son's whole career. But the water has caused so much conversations about water, and it's really been the number one thing that's actually brought us clients.
Oh, so we talked about the fitness part of it. We talked about the water, and you've talked a little bit about this, but I want to maybe focus on this last component a lot more, is this concept of the living diet. And so you've created a book called The Living Diet, and this is described as a comprehensive nutrition course disguised as a world-class recipe book. Spoiler alert, this is one of our featured books of the day on the reading list. So would you mind talking a little bit about the book and what's in it, Ron, and how people can find it?
Absolutely. So we have it right on the front of our website, elitedynamiclife.com. And my son and Al have they've done 99% of the work. It's basically everything I've taught my son, everything I've taught Al over the years, everything he's taught her, because he's been around me for 22 years full time, and all their research and hard work on all the little scientific details about the micronutrients, macronutrients, and all of that to actually put it together. And it's right now just on pre-order. There's 15 recipes available. When it's finished in the next month or two, there'll be a total of about 82, 83 recipes. But it teaches you, not only, it gives you a bunch of great recipes where you get the micronutrients, like your vitamins, your minerals, your saccharides, your fiber, but the protein, the carbohydrates. It gives you all those details, but it also teaches you about what a carbohydrate is, what's an enzyme, what's a probiotic, what's an amino acid, what's the purpose of them, essential fatty acids, fiber, nitric oxide, minerals, vitamins, everything you need to know. So you actually learn about what's the purpose of all these things and how to eat them in a bioavailable form so your body can actually be nourished, because there's a massive contrast between consumption and utilization. In the time we've been on the planet, you and I, how many diets have come out? Countless diets, right?
Yeah.
But why are they not talking about what matters is, are you utilizing the nutrients that you're consuming? Is your body getting those nutrients in? Are they feeding your cells? That's what matters. So I don't care what people are consuming. I want to know, are they digesting it? Because anything you consume, even though it could be a healthy thing, if your body's not able to digest it, because it's been too denatured through processing or cooking, or it's been genetically modified or heavily sprayed with herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, God only knows what they do into the food these days. Then if you cannot digest it, then your body doesn't know how to eliminate it. So now it in fact becomes a toxin to your body.
Wow. So the story that we've always heard about garbage in, garbage out, it's actually worse than that. Some of the garbage goes in and it doesn't come out. Some of it comes out, but some of it stays in our body and actually makes us sick and kills us.
100%. I've been detoxing people for 26 years since my mentor started mentoring me. A year after I began detoxing myself with his direction, then he began to help me with a bunch of my clients, because a lot of it was pretty complex, people with cancer and all kinds of other diseases. And I had no idea what to do. I wasn't going to touch anything I wasn't qualified to do. So I had him come on board and help me. So I would just sit along for the ride and like an apprentice, and literally every single person, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we put on a detox. Every one of them had an alarming amount of undigested food, mucus plaque, and parasites come out of them. Just a few years ago, I had a client that had over 80 pounds of feces and parasites come out of his gastrointestinal tract.
Wow, just incredible. So, Ron, one question that some people watching this might be asking is they might be thinking, well, this makes sense for somebody who's like an elite athlete, someone who's training a lot like Ron or something like that. But I'm not really like that. This isn't for me. But can you talk a little bit about who this is for? This is really for everybody, isn't it? I mean, obviously you wouldn't have the same program for, an NFL quarterback that you would have for somebody who is in their 70s and just trying to improve their health. But you could adapt what you're talking about to individual needs, right? And I expect that you have
100%.
clients from all walks of life.
100%. Most of our clients aren't athletes. Most of our clients, 95% of our clients are regular people from regular life, real estate agents, massage therapists, doctors, teachers, lawyers, assistants. We have every kind of person. We've had, health and wellness coaches. We've had naturopaths, homeopaths. We've had dentists. I mean, we've had everybody, businessmen, multimillionaires. We've had a couple of billionaires. And it doesn't matter who you are. You need to be hydrated. You need to have your bowel working on time. You need to have, no toxins in your body, and you need to have no nutritional deficiencies, because at the end of the day, if you want your brain to work optimally, then you have to have a healthy gut. It's all about the gut health, because the gut health determines the health of your brain, your muscles, your joints, your bones, your lungs, your heart, your liver. Everything is about gut health, because your gut feeds every system in your body, right? Mm-hmm. So there's huge evidence of this. This is not just my opinion. This is a fact. It's scientific fact. It's been proven for decades and decades that your gut health affects the health of your brain. It affects your mental, emotional health. It affects the health of every organ in your body. This has been known since the 20s. They're just not telling us, because there's no money in making people well. The money is in treating their symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And,
that's what it's about.
Oh yeah. And on that topic, we're going to slide into something somewhat controversial, because you've been very outspoken about the way that public health has been spreading misinformation, dangerous information about, for example, COVID-19. Now, recently, there was just a report that was just released in Canada. A new report prepared for the Liberal Party of Canada shows that the vaccines have no benefit for those under 60 years of age. And I should tell you, Ron, that when I cross-examined the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Alberta, Dina Hinshaw, for 4 days earlier this year, she gave over 400 press conferences. And I showed her that the number one feature, the number one health factor, which impacted every single of the major diseases that was affecting Albertans at the time, you could run a line all the way through, and the number one thing was obesity. And I also pointed out to her that nearly 80% of the people who went to hospital with serious COVID symptoms were also obese. And yet in 400 press conferences, not once did she ever mention to people that maybe they were eating too much or they should get more exercise. And her response was, they didn't do that because their weight, obesity is something that people cannot control. So that's the opinion of this health expert, who regards the entire province of Alberta as her patient. There's something seriously wrong with this, isn't there?
Well, my opinion is this, you're not going to ask a person who's broke how to make $1 million, are you?
I guess not.
And you're not going to ask someone who doesn't own a house how to invest in real estate, right?
Right.
So my first thought is, for all of the people listening, all your viewers, anyone who may watch this podcast one day, take a look at the health of your doctor and your healthcare providers and your medical authorities, and then ask yourself, do they look like the person you should be listening to in the first place? Because if they're not healthy themselves, what business do they have of telling us what to do, even if they have the credentials? So what? These days, PhDs are worth not much more than the paper they're written on. What the PhD everybody should be looking to achieve, which is what I call a PhD in results.
Mm-hmm.
I have over 180 scientific journals that prove what I've already known my whole life. Since I was a young boy, my mom led me to live a natural life, was that our God-given immune system is superior to everything else there is. It's been admitted by every top doctor and scientist around the world for years in a row. It's a no-brainer. Human beings are not going to invent something that's greater than what God can do. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. We didn't create the universe we live in. We didn't create the planet. We didn't even create ourselves. So getting in harmony with the laws of nature is the way to do it. So why isn't there talk about sunshine, fresh air, exercise, healthy whole food supplements, and positive thinking? And why is it nothing but just bad news, bad news, bad news? Like CNN, it's constantly negative news.
Yeah.
So it's there's no more common sense. I call it uncommon sense.
Hmm.
We the people should be taking care of ourselves in the first place. It's all about fresh air, oxygen, exercise, sunshine, clean water, healthy whole foods, clean living, and being able to manage your own stress.
Hmm.
Stress management skills are, far and few between today. And people are just watching news. They're watching information that is doing nothing but give them a lot of fear. It's an interesting thing. Why don't we just use the dictionary for a second, because I always find that fun. And there's no debate, there's no arguments. So when virus became the most popular word in the world for some time, I decided to look it up and do a little more research on this. So I decided to do this. What's the definition of virus?
Here's the definition of virus. An infective agent that typically consists of a nucleic acid molecule in a protein coat, is too small to be seen by light microscopy, and is able to multiply only within the living cells of a host.
Very interesting. What's more interesting is if you go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary and you read definition number 2. May I read it to you?
Sure.
It says something that poisons the mind or soul.
Oh boy.
So I thought to myself, well, this something deserves a name. So I took the liberty of naming it myself, and I call it fearitis.
Hmm.
And from my perspective, what I've witnessed is smartphones and tablets and laptops and televisions give people a special type of fear about diseases and living around other human beings. And I call it fearitis. And fearitis, like other viruses, they mutate and they turn into another variant. So I took the liberty of naming the variant that I seen manifesting through fearitis. I call it stupitis. And it's a very bad virus. If you don't get treatment right away by someone who knows the truth, who has a lot of patience, right, then it can mutate into something more severe, which I call idiitis. You've seen evidence of that around, I'm sure. The most troubling one, though, I find is another variant of fearitis that I call moronitis. And that one causes symptoms like driving around aimlessly alone in a car with a mask on and the windows rolled up. Or you see them in the woods, hiking in the trails alone with a mask on. I even saw a woman swimming in the river with a mask on.
Hmm.
These are symptoms of moronitis, and it's just really sad. I'm just trying to make light of it. But it's very, very sad that they have made so many people so afraid of a disease that is not that difficult to deal with personally. It's really not a big deal. I know it's horrible that so many people got sick. It hurt a lot of elderly people. It hurt a lot of overweight people. It caused a lot of sickness in the world. I'm not going to deny it. It's a horrible disease, like all diseases are horrible. There's no good disease, is there? But it's more the stress of running around living in fear that's doing more damage to our world than any virus ever has.
Hmm.
And this was a wake-up call for planet Earth. It's called the human race, wake up and take responsibility for our own health, because the people in power are not giving us good advice. They're not giving us sound advice. And maybe you might want to listen to someone who's achieved health to tell you what you should do. Makes more
Yeah.
sense to me. Like I'm not going to try to figure out, how to do law. I'm going to talk to you. In fact, I might need a lawyer after the show. Maybe you can give me a call.
I think I want to find out how to properly hydrate myself and do some of the other things you've been talking about. Because if I do that, I think maybe I can provide better service to my clients. But no, I had a similar experience. Go ahead, Ron.
I can tell you this, that, you live in your body, right? You're not going to live anywhere else your whole life. You're going to be living in this body, right? You're a being living in this body, and you have a mind, right? And your life is the sum total of your choices. So the healthier your brain, the better the choices you're going to make, right? So how are you going to have a healthy brain in a toxic, dehydrated, malnourished body? The answer is you can't. So the healthier we make your body, the better the man you're going to be, the better the athlete you're going to be, the better the husband you're going to be, the father, the lawyer, the dentist, whatever you do, the better dancer, better golfer, because you're a healthy specimen. And if you're a healthy specimen, you're better at anything and everything you want to do because you have the energy, the health, the vitality, and the mental capacity to handle what you need to do. And your brain is a very delicate organ. That's why we wear helmets, you know. But unfortunately, there's a lot of man-made chemicals. Like, how about 144,000 chemicals man has made in the last 100 years? Most of them can go through the blood-brain barrier. So that will cause a mental imbalance, a chemical imbalance in the brain. We have men and women with hormone imbalances in the body. That's why the vast majority of men over 30 are getting TRT, you know, testosterone replacement therapy. That's not a good idea because that's synthetic, it's man-made. That's not going to create longevity. That's a short-term fix. And then later, you're going to have problems, premature aging and all kinds of problems, you know. I help men with that all the time. And that's, what would you rather have, synthetic testosterone or the real thing?
Right.
So it's so important for people to understand that you can only be as good as you are healthy as a human being.
Brilliant. Well, that's a great place to end off that part of our discussion. As I warned you before we started, Ron, we were going to dive into something called the reading list.
Go for it.
You've already talked about a couple of books. Well, one, an anthology of 66 books, and then the other book that you mentioned, and we've talked about the living diet. So you've already given us really 3 great recommendations. One other one that I have that I thought sort of tied into what you're talking about is a book that was released by Tom Brady, who I mentioned off the top, and he's been quite remarkable in that he's been able to maintain a very high level, elite level of athletic performance well into middle age. And he's written a book called The T12 Method, How to Do What You Love Better and for Longer. And part of the reason why I mention him in his book is because one of the things that's part of his method, and you're probably aware of this, Ron, is proper hydration.
100%.
So his book is, he further explains and details the revolutionary training, condition, and wellness system that has kept him atop the NFL at an age when most players are deep into retirement. And so Brady, along with the expert body coaches at TB12, the performance lifestyle brand he created in 2013, explained the principles and philosophies of pliability, a paradigm-shifting fitness concept that focuses on more natural, healthier way of exercising, training, and living, and it's filled with 5 lessons from his own training regimen. And again, one of the key ones is obviously hydration, cognitive fitness, restorative sleep, and nutrition, and also easy to execute recipes. So I thought that this would be an interesting book for sports fans to see how somebody would take some of the principles that you talk about in your work and see if, you know, to sort of take those to the extreme. So that's why I thought this would be an interesting book as a companion to the work that you are doing, because he's obviously applying many of the principles that you've been talking about, and it's made him the most successful football player really in the history of National Football League. So do you have any other books or resources that you would like to point people to, Ron, you think that would help them in their sort of journey towards better health and fitness and wellness?
Well, one of the biggest problems we've had over the last few years, even prior to that, was censorship, right? And when I tried to start sharing some of the things I know about immunity and warning people about things that are going on, if you know what I mean, and I tried to do that on Facebook and YouTube, them videos were just taken down instantly, right? So my son, being an intelligent young man, I had him build a whole new platform for me, which people can get on through our website. It's called EliteDynamicWarriorNation.com. There's a link on our website, EliteDynamicLife.com, and they can become a member. They just got to answer a few questions because, you know, it's an exclusive private community. We don't just let anybody in there willy-nilly because we want people that truly have our core values in mind. They share our principles and they truly there because they want to be healthy and they want to learn stuff. And this is just our way to give back to society where people can't afford a coach, one-on-one coaching or group coaching. then they can come in here and we do at least 1 or 2 free live presentations a week on health, on the various subjects we teach to our clients, so that we can literally help anyone who doesn't want to be a victim of the status quo, old age and sickness and disease, and they want to have some, sound tips from true principles that work.
Oh, this is great. Thank you so much, Ron. I'm going to check that out. I hope you'll let me in, because I want to get on there and become a member.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to find out more about, especially about this hydration. I'm always searching for new ways to improve health and wellness. We had a gentleman on this program recently who wrote a book about fasting. Called The Oldest Cure in the World. I know fasting is part of your regimen, sometimes what you do. And I went on a fast for 12 days.
Good for you.
I found it incredibly invigorating. It was a total surprise. I wasn't hungry, and it's changed my relationship with food. But some of the stuff that you're talking about, I really feel could take someone like me to the next level. So I'm very intrigued by what you've talked about today, and I'm looking forward to learning more about what you and your team do.
I'd like to share a real quick testimony with you, if I could.
Please do.
I was having a meeting with a client today who's a very successful businessman. He's a real estate broker. He's got a couple hundred real estate agents working for him. Well-known guy in his field. And he started with me about 10 months ago. And I promised him that we would reverse his biological clock a couple of decades in a year, right? Pretty tall promise. And I'm all about under promise, over deliver. And, he was reluctant at first, because he's like, can you really do that for me? And I said, look, you didn't become a millionaire because you're not a smart man. You have good instincts, right? He goes, yep. I said, so what's your gut telling you? Can I deliver, or am I just blowing smoke up your butt? And he goes, I believe you can do it. I said, okay, let's get started. So after 3 months, he got his blood tested day 1. 3 months, he had his blood tested, live blood analysis. I saw the blood myself, and it looks way better. Then he had his 6th month, and he just had his 4th one. His 3rd one, I should say. And the woman who does live blood analysis, has been doing it for over 30 years, told him, I'm jealous of your blood. I wish I had your blood. And he's 71, right?
Wow.
And when he started, his blood looked terrible, like almost everyone's does when they first do this, because it shows up everything. Like, there's no hiding from it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever toxins you've been putting in your body is going to show up. If you're deficient in something, it's going to show up. If your red blood cells aren't healthy, you can't miss it. If you have a parasite, you're going to see it. If you have, unhealthy white blood cells, you're going to see it. So it's the most revealing thing, a live blood analysis. Everyone on earth should be doing a live blood analysis right now, because of the shedding and the spreading and the transference of things that are happening right now in the world,
Mm-hmm. It's strange that none of our health experts mentioned that.
Yeah, I know.
How odd. Anyway, Ron, this has been a real pleasure talking with you and learning more about what you do. We're very grateful for your time and for your wisdom. Thank you so much for being our special guest today on Gray Matter.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much.